The Democratic National Convention concludes tonight with Secretary Hillary Clinton accepting her historic nomination as the first woman to lead a major party ticket. We want to look back at some defining moments in DNC history with presidential historian Doug Wead. Doug, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Maria. Great to be with you.
So we want to start with the 1968 Democratic National Convention. There were anti-Vietnam War protests going on outside of the convention hall when Connecticut Senator Abe Ribicoff addressed the delegates. Listen to this.
There is something else in my heart tonight, and not the speech that I am prepared to give. And with George McGovern as President of the United States, we wouldn't have to have Gestapo tactics in the streets of Chicago.
So George McGovern, we know, became the nominee but lost in the general election. How did that moment impact the party that we see today, the Democratic Party?
Yeah, Abe Ribicoff, that was some moment. They got their wish in 1972. They got McGovern. They went down to defeat, like the Republican Party that went down to defeat with Barry Goldwater in 1964, but came back with Ronald Reagan. The Democrat Party tilted to the left and came back with Barack Obama. They don't call it left or liberalism anymore. Those are naughty words. They don't even call it socialism. They call it progressives. But they got everything they dreamed for under McGovern when Barack Obama came to power.
And in fact, today, Robert Wolf, people will say it's the most progressive platform ever for the Democratic Party.
Congressman Ellison actually said that.
Listen, the platform's incredibly progressive, no question about that. But I would say last night, a lot of conservatives were listening to what Obama said. And if you looked on Twitter, and today they were comparing a lot of it to Reagan's optimism. And so I'd like to hear what Doug thinks about that.
So, Doug, let me just get your take on this next soundbite. Texas Governor Ann Richards, who at the time was the state's treasurer, made a name for herself during the 1988 Democratic National Convention by going after GOP presidential nominee George H.W. Bush. Listen to this.
I'm delighted to be here with you this evening because after listening to George Bush all these years, I figured you needed to know what a real Texas accent sounds like. He's found child care. He's found education. Poor George. He can't help it. He was born with a silver foot in his mouth.
Doug, you were working with his son, George W. Bush, at the time. How did that speech motivate him?
Yes, and I was working with the father. I remember sitting in the family box at New Orleans at the RNC that year. They hated that moment. That probably, Ann Richards probably triggered the Bush dynasty in that moment. They came back. George W. defeated her as governor of Texas and then went on to win 2 terms as president. So sometimes these tough, mean moments at the convention backfire, and that one did.
Anything that you think will backfire from this convention?
Well, I watched Bill Clinton's speech, and I was intrigued because in 1988, Bill Clinton gave a horrible speech. He was the unknown governor of Arkansas. He was booed from the floor. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, went on and on. The delegates were upset. The commentators said, this man's political career is over, and 4 years later, he was president of the United States. So sometimes these dark moments, Epictetus says, it's not what happens, it's how we react to it, and Bill Clinton came back from that dark moment. That's what I thought of when I watched him speak on Tuesday night. He had come back.
All right, Doug, we'll leave it there. Good to have you on the program, Doug. Thanks so much. Doug Wead joining us there.